So the SPANE experiment, love versus authenticity. This is something I came across just this week, as a matter of fact. And of course, I wanted to bring it here to the podcast because I believe that it is a very pivotal part of core beliefs as it relates to, people's spirituality and their self-awareness, their level of consciousness. The SPANE experiment, SPANE stands for Scale of Positive and Negative Experience. It was done by a gentleman named Dr. Ed Diener, Diener, and his colleagues, his team. What they did, they measured the frequency and intensity of positive and negative emotions. Most of us believe that the broader and more powerful emotion is love, that frequency, because in spiritual realms, in spiritual arenas and spiritual, circles, we're always talking about, the frequency that you are on and your ability to be able to resonate with certain things based on your frequency. And of course, we always have thought that obviously the higher in the scale you go, ultimately you get to this level of a love frequency and you're able to assimilate and match a lot of things that you want. And of course, the lower emotions you go, the opposite is true. So what are some of the lower emotions? Jealousy and envy and hatred and these sorts of things. And we're going to show you, if you're watching us on YouTube today, I'm going to show you a scale. I don't have the SPANE scale. Actually, I do have it, but it's a little confusing. So I thought I would kind of walk you through some of the information and make it correlate with what we talk about here on the podcast in an ultimate effort to help it correlate to your life, because I think you're going to enjoy this the way that I did, in understanding that really authenticity, meaning being your true self, whether it's in relationship or your business, career, etc., that is the most powerful frequency. And the reason I think it is so incredibly important for us to grasp that and to understand that, and then to engage and employ that sort of mentality in our lives, is because at birth, listen, you listen to the podcast, so this is my opinion, this is what I believe, and certainly you're free to your own, but I believe that we are consistently and steadily trained and programmed to be who society wants us to be. We are consistently and we're steadily programmed to be who society wants us to be, whether it's through education, through religion, through the hard-working efforts of our parents. Whatever it is, authenticity is usually not a part of it. It is an easier society to control when you tell them what to do. You can't have a lot of people understanding their power and being their authentic selves, because they'll run through the temple and turn over tables. And I hope you understand that reference. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this experiment. I'm going to give you my thoughts on it, just like I just did now. And I'm going to connect it to our everyday lives and where we can practice this and get us into a position of just living more powerful lives. This is a tweak. I don't think this is a full throttle turn. I think this is just going higher. Love is certainly a very high frequency, and it's a place that we all want to be and operate out of consistently, because what bad can come out of a low frequency? But in order to truly understand and get the most value for who you are, I think you got to be who you are. You have to be your authentic self. And yes, that includes your sexual orientation. Yes, that includes whatever else that you believe yourself to be in your place here in this environment for the time that you're here. And I think you'll get the most out of this experience if we're doing that. And we will be the most productive, and we will feel the most productive. I.e., what we say here on the podcast all the time is that fulfillment is the goal, it's the key. And fulfillment means that somehow we figure out what our work is and we couple it up with our passion, right? We have a passion for the thing that we do. And that passion plus the work that we do, it equals fulfillment. We have the best opportunity of being fulfilled when those two things come together. And really, if you think about it, that's what authenticity is. That's what authenticity is. And I'll give you a quick example before we jump into a couple slides because I want to show you some things. Have you ever been to a service industry type of place, be it a restaurant or some store, and you ran into a person who was just authentically nice and wanted to help you? Someone who was just made to be in a customer service type of environment where every word was a kind one. They were more than willing to help you. You felt their, generosity and of course their authenticity. The reverse or the converse is that you've been in an environment where, the same industry, and then there are people that don't really care to help you. They don't have that innate, authentic caring for other individuals. This maybe is just not a good place for them to be. Maybe they're better working with processes and procedures or programs versus people, but you can feel the difference and you can tell the difference. I know I have been. I've gone out to many restaurants. I'd love to tip people. I even tip people when I don't get great service. But at the end of the day, I would really like to tip people who really are giving good service, and it comes across very authentically and it comes across very genuinely. All right, so let's jump into the slides and let's talk about this particular study, and we'll see where we go. Okay, so let's start at the top. Welcome in this week. Obviously, you know what we're going to be talking about here, but if you're new to this channel, what I'd like to do is just shoot you over to the comments area if you're looking at us on YouTube, and just check out our longer blogs. We've been around for 4 years. We really just now starting to put out videos and podcasts on YouTube. So check us out. We've got plenty of links in the show notes to kind of help to explain what we do and who we are. And if you guys are old timers, you've been listening to us on, Spotify and all the different places over the last 3.5, 4 years, we really appreciate you. And hey, come over on the other side. Check us out on YouTube. All those links are in either the bio if you are on, your podcast platform. But if you're on YouTube, the podcast platforms are in the comments. All right. And also, the last thing, this podcast actually has a download that goes with it. So if you want to download it, and the reason, of course, I'm doing this is because I feel like we need something in our hands, because you can forget this as soon as I say it. There's a link to the actual study. I need you to know that this is an actual study. The second thing is these notes and these practical daily practices that I'm going to offer you in a few minutes to really encourage you to be your most authentic self. That's what we're going to get out of it today. So let's get going. Welcome in this week. Obviously, you know what we're going to be talking about here, but if you're new to this channel, what I'd like to do is just shoot you over to the comments area if you're looking at us on YouTube, and just check out our longer blogs. We've been around for 4 years. We really just now starting to put out videos and podcasts on YouTube. So check us out. We've got plenty of links in the show notes to kind of help to explain what we do and who we are. And if you guys are old timers, you've been listening to us on, Spotify and all the different places over the last 3.5, 4 years, we really appreciate you. And hey, come over on the other side. Check us out on YouTube. All those links are in either the bio if you are on, your podcast platform. But if you're on YouTube, the podcast platforms are in the comments. All right. And also, the last thing, this podcast actually has a download that goes with it. So if you want to download it, and the reason, of course, I'm doing this is because I feel like we need something in our hands, because you can forget this as soon as I say it. There's a link to the actual study. I need you to know that this is an actual study. The second thing is these notes and these practical daily practices that I'm going to offer you in a few minutes to really encourage you to be your most authentic self. That's what we're going to get out of it today. So let's get going. So let's start off here. While love is powerful, of course, we're not neglecting love. Love is one of the most powerful forces. And here we've always taught that, you've got your core opposites. You've got the forces of love. And then the opposite of that is not some sort of evil, or it's actually fear. Fear is the opposite of love. Evil, interestingly enough, is the absence of love, the absence of that. Example would be light. There's a source of light. Okay, so there's a source of light. You can have fire, some sort of energy, of course, the sun. There's a source of radiating light. There is no source of darkness. There is the absence of light, which creates darkness, but there is not I can't go into a room and say, hey, I'm going to push darkness into this room, but I can actually carry light with me and I can force light into a room, a flashlight. Okay. So as it relates to love, love is a powerful force. However, authenticity is the key to a truly fulfilled life. This is what came of the study. Again, the SPANE research study. This was held by Dr. Ed Diener and his team. This was done or I should say published in 2017. So the study took a little while. Now, if you're looking online, you're looking at YouTube, I'm going to describe this to our podcasting audience. What I am showing you is an alpha to omega type of frequency chart. And I know if you've been in a spiritual environment and arena for any time, you've seen these types of charts where it starts with the lower emotions and it goes all the way up to the higher emotions, to enlightenment. So it starts down like with shame and guilt and apathy. And then there's a score, a numeric score. For example, shame is carrying about 20 frequency, guilt is 30, apathy and grief is at 75. And you sort of get up midway to courage and neutrality and acceptance, and those are from 200 to 350. But then we start resonating in what's considered flow. Those other two were suffering and getting by. But then that flow state, the willingness, the acceptance, the reason, and then love. Love is at 500. You begin to get into a flow state. And above love, they show joy, peace, and enlightenment. Of course, Zen, enlightenment, higher ultimate consciousness is really, what we're all aiming for. Well, this study goes to talk about the frequency of love versus authenticity, and how you can use this information and be encouraged to be your authentic self if you really want to get the most out of this life experience. That is what this podcast is about in a nutshell. This study, again, it is called the SPANE scale, but what that stands for is the scale of positive and negative experiences. So the study was done on a group of people, and of course they studied their positive and negative experiences and the way that this correlated numerically. Now, I have a link at the front of the podcast. When you download it, you'll see this link here. This link will take you to the study. Read to your heart's delight. There's a number of charts there. I can't pretend to understand it, and it's going to be really hard to translate on a podcast. So I simply decided to give you guys a free download, and you can go and download it at your leisure, and you can take a look at it and read it. But it's important that you do that because, we study to show ourselves approved here. I don't want you to just take me at my word. I appreciate it, but I want you to read it so it can really sink in. The study is designed to measure the range and intensity of emotions that were experienced on a daily basis, both positive and negative. So if you think about it, traditionally people believe, like I said coming in, that love is the highest emitting emotion, maybe the highest experience that we can have. But according to this, the ultimate experience on an emotional scale can be our authenticity. Why is that? When I first heard that, I immediately resonated with it. I didn't challenge it from the standpoint of, receiving it. Now I'm going to go and do the research, but I just immediately resonated with that because I think about in my own life when I felt my best, when I've done my best and I felt good about it, I was being someone other than I am most of the other time. I don't know if, you say that out loud, but there it is. Most of the other time, who am I being? I'm being who society wants me to be. I'm being a father and I'm being a husband, and not to misconstrue any of that, because I do want to be a father and I do want to be a husband that I know, but I was trained to do that. I grew up in a family that was a, family. Yeah, well, my father was killed when I was small, but I always saw two parent, families, and I always wanted kids, I always wanted to be married. But if I'd never seen that, would I have wanted it? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know how deep to dig. What I'm saying is I am who I am based on the conditioning that I have. And I'm sure if I grew up in a different culture where family structures are different, diets are different, educational structures are different, I would think differently because I received different programming. In and amongst all these systems and all this programming, how do we still, Kelly, identify and live our authentic selves? That's what we're going to get into. That's the practice that we want. If you agree that your authenticity is really where your most power resides, and I believe that is, because just think about it logically. When you're being your best self, we've called it in the past on this podcast, our best self or our higher self or even our true self. That's really just your authentic self. That's who you are at the heart. And I think even though we've been programmed and systematically, designed to, operate and go to college and get into these certain careers, um, we do have periods of time where, even if it's unintentionally, we're being our authentic selves. So you could be in a corporate job which you don't really care for, but if you are a very kind, empathetic person, there are times on that job where people are going through difficulty, and maybe you're there to help people through their difficulty. That is your authentic self. Now, the fact that you're an administrative whoever or you're a manager of this and that, you don't like that part. But when people need to be helped, you love that part. So sometimes we're able to be our authentic selves, even in careers that we don't really care about. I know that has happened with me. I have been in corporate careers my whole life. Now, working on my own and consulting and things like that. I know that it's not really my authentic self what I do professionally, which is why I started this podcast in the first place. Full transparency. I told you guys that I feel like this is my giving back. This is my way of saying, if I don't have a whole lot to give to the world, I can give my experiences. I can give this information in hopes that it will help and that it will impact the lives of at least one person, and that will be my contribution. I want to contribute to society in a positive way. I want, while I am, growing myself, here's something very important too, as I kind of jump around in my thoughts. Congratulations, you get a brain dump today. So as I jump around in my thoughts, one of the things I was thinking the other day when I was driving is that while we're going through this process of, podcasting, and you guys are listening to me on a regular basis, by the way, thanks. I don't want to ever come across as like, I'm torn between being a subject matter expert and having, convinced people that, hey, I got us all figured out. That is not the case. I do want my audience to believe the information I'm giving you is concise and accurate and these sorts of things. But in no way should you think that I have all this stuff figured out. We all live this life experience. And in the life experience, there are going to be challenges. And the reason I believe you're going to have challenges is because you are not this flesh. You are actually spirit. And spirit is always expanding, expanding, expanding. So that's why when you get a new job, the newness wears off, and then you want a better one, and then a better one. Or you have something that you've always wanted, and you get it, and then you go and well, two reasons. One, you're not going to be satisfied with any sort of temporal thing because you're a spirit. But the other thing is that you expand. You just continue to expand. You get larger and larger and larger because you are really innately everything. You're made in the image and the likeness of all there is. And so how could you not expand? You're sort of encapsulated in this physical form, but you're really spirit. So back to our subject, the authenticity piece of it. Have you been in a position, career-wise, work-wise, relationship-wise, where you don't feel like you're really being your authentic self? Now, for those of you who have dealt with sexual orientation issues in terms of not really being able to be who you really are because of how society would depict you, same deal. You feel a pressure to please those around you or not disappoint or not be, not have some sort of aggression towards you because of who you really are. So you sort of hold back. You become who people want you to be. And so your life is sort of half and half. The times where I feel like I can be my authentic self, I'm doing that. Other times I'm people pleasing. We've all done that. And what I'm encouraging to do today is to consider being more of your authentic self most, if not all, of the time. Now, segment number 2 here is challenging conventional beliefs. And again, I encourage you to go to YouTube, or at least go to the link in our comments or bio to download this particular presentation, or this workbook, so you can take a look at what we have here. And you can just have it to read through. It's not very long, so you want to kind of go back through it after you've driven wherever you're going. It's fine. So why authenticity? Well, it's because authenticity is actually it's the foundation of true, sustainable, emotional well-being. Authenticity, it is the foundation of true, sustainable, emotional well-being. I'm not a therapist. I have been in therapy. And I can tell you this, I'm 53 years old. Most of the time, when people are not being their authentic selves, they're unstable in some way, because they're trying to be something that they're not. Love, like we said, is an incredible frequency. But man, if you can just be who you are all the time, that really is the place. So let's think about this. Love is often conditional because we don't understand it. We've not been taught really what the agape type of love is. And it is fluctuating because there's a lot of emotions, especially with younger couples, people who have not been in love before. Really, what love is some other energy, and they disguise it or they confuse it with love. A lot of times it's based on external circumstances. What can you do for me? What can I do for you? We're trading these favors. If it's a man-woman type relationship or romantic sort of thing, it's what do you bring? Nowadays, everybody's what do you bring to the table sort of stuff. If it is yourself, in terms of love, we beat up on ourselves a lot because we don't ever feel good enough. We're trying to do things that maybe are not in our path. We're not being our authentic selves. And we get upset because we didn't get the promotion. We didn't get, we feel looked over, we feel unappreciated. And we're in a place that maybe the universe is saying, this is not your place. Believe me, I've been there. This isn't your place. And my opinion, the universe or God or source or whoever your, God of your choice is, could be saying, hey, let's look for another place. This isn't your place. If you feel that way, then that could be one of the reasons why you're not having great success there. It's just not your place. Authenticity also is about aligning your true self. You heard me say that earlier. Discovering your core values. We talk about that all the time here on the podcast, aligning those two. And your deepest beliefs. What do you believe? Why is that important? We talked about it a few podcasts ago. Everything that you do is based upon a belief. You wouldn't be doing it otherwise. The reason you get up every day and go to work is because you believe that it's something that a responsible person does. You were taught that. You learned that. You believe that. And you do it every day, and now it's become a habit. And because you're dependable and people can rely on you, it is part of your character. That is how deep beliefs are. Even if you've been programmed, okay? Even if you're being programmed, if you tend to believe it, it becomes part of you. So think about how powerful authenticity can be if when you get in your right, lane, your path, and you really know that this is what I'm here to do. I feel that way when I'm on a podcast a lot because it comes so naturally. Now, it could be I've got a number of years of life experience to share and I want to do that. It could also be I have a number of years of relationship experience and I want to do that. I have a number of years with experience as being a father, and I want to share that. And I just want to really help people, particularly because I struggled personally so much when I was young because of two things. Number one, I was young. And if you've ever been young, then you know part of the issue with being young is youth and not knowing that you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, which is why this information is so important. I'm just now understanding this and I'm 53 years old. If you can understand this, and if you had the capacity to, I don't know if you really do, but if you had the capacity to in your 20s, imagine how this can transform your life and how much better your life can be lived because you're being your authentic self. The other reason that I had a harder time is because, quite honestly, yeah, my father was killed when I was small. I didn't have a father figure, and I was the oldest boy, but um, I was someone who, was sort of the spearhead. I was kind of out in front for my brothers, and I just sort of had to plow the road to see which path to take. That's just what my life was. And unfortunately, when you're plowing the road, you're going to hit a lot of bumps, a lot of rocks sometimes, and you may get, dinged. But if my folks that are following me are not going to get dinged, I was willing to take the ding. And so I made a lot of mistakes when I was younger and learned from them, which is probably why I know as much as I know now, because probably everything you could do, I've already done. Segment 3, let's dive deep into authenticity. Authenticity is not just being honest. It's about being real with yourself and with others. And I know the challenge that presents, particularly in our society, when you really want to be who you are and other people are not cool with it, right? Other people not cool with it. Or you're afraid you may get some retribution or some sort of kickback. Or, they're not going to think I'm cool, or I'm not going to be as awesome. Plenty of times in therapy, I've discovered that one of my greatest concerns, I want to not use the F word, one of my greatest concerns has been, if I was my authentic self, what would people really think, particularly those that are closest to me? If, many of us are living trying to please other people, if we let that show go, okay? You guys seen this before. You go on a date for the first time, everybody brings their best sales rep, right? Because everybody wants to be liked. It's an ego-based thing. But what if you don't get out of that mindset of always trying to hold up that persona because that's what you sold? The other person is expecting that. Your company's expecting that. Your girlfriend, your wife, your boyfriend, your husband, they're all expecting that. And you're like, hey, maybe I oversold. I'm not really not this perfect. I can't keep this room clean every day, but I sold you this. No, and I got to do it. That's a simple example. What I'm saying is more. I'm sorry, I hit the microphone. It's deeper inside. If you are, just not happy in a marriage because maybe you're supposed to be single, or maybe you're single and you want to be married, or maybe you're a mom, or you want to be a mom, or you're a teacher. You're stuck in a corporate job somewhere, but you love the engagement with kids. I find that to be, probably one of the best examples, because I spent a little time in classroom and teaching. I feel like teaching, maybe I'm doing some teaching vibes here on the podcast, but I feel like teaching is one of those things that is most productive for me. I love helping people. I love sharing information, and particularly young people. I like to help guide them so that they can, sort of veer around some of the issues I had when I was a young person. And I don't want you to think I was, gang related or locked up. None of that stuff has ever happened. But my life path was relatively difficult, when I was younger, without a dad, always wanting a dad and not having one. And then, I always knew I wanted to be a dad because I never had one. I wanted to give that to my kids. I wanted to see what that was like. But I really stumbled and bumbled um, into it. And fortunately, everything turned out, because everything always works out. But if you can get a little less stumbles and bumbles, that's what this is about. Authenticity is about aligning your actions and your thoughts and emotions with your true self. Aligning your thoughts and your actions with your true self. Now, let's go to the end of that equation. First, you got to figure out who's your true self. That's the tough part. Do you even know at this point? 53 years old. I love being a father. I love being a husband. I really, if I'm being honest, I don't have a personal identity because the hardest times for me to spend are times alone because I've had so little time alone. I went on a trip last year to my favorite place, Disney World, if you're wondering, and I did it alone. And it was weird. It was tough. It was tough. I traveled for years by myself for work, but that's what I thought I was supposed to do. It was part of my job. And even being alone in the hotels and at work, I miss my family, I miss my wife all the time. But this was something different. The whole identity around, or the whole reason I would go to Disney World, we started years and years and years ago, was take my kids and take my wife and just enjoy family. And I love Disney so much. I go every year for my birthday, and I just wanted to go because I miss being at the park. And I went, and the first day was pretty rough. And to the point I thought I was going to just, I'll just go back home, just forget it. But I stayed. I did enjoy myself, but it let me know that I, Kelly, the individual, is like way down here on scale. So Kelly, the father or husband and father and career person and provider, all that stuff's way up here. Okay. So where is my authentic self? I think I'm somewhere in all there. And I've got to figure it out. Now, how am I going to do that? Meditation, journaling, spending time by myself. When you're living authentically, you're not swayed, and this is one of the benefits, you're not swayed by like external expectations. And I think that's where, I can't speak for you, but where I am, I tend to be swayed by expectations externally. Let me give you an example. I'm a part of a social organization, and I love it. I really do. I love the social organization, but it's frustrating sometimes. And I've been very frustrated over the last several years. And I've had internal conversations about why are you, why are you still part of this? Why are you still doing this to yourself? Because, you could be doing other stuff and not being as frustrated. So why do I continue to do it? Because I'm swayed by external expectations. People expect me to be there. Why? I started it. I started this particular part of the organization. I was a president, on the board. People expect me to be there. So is that good? Is that not good? Does that happen in your life? Do you have something similar? How do we get out of that? That's what we're going to talk about. Because the power of authenticity, when it is in motion, that's when it really shines. When you are grounded in your own truth, when you're not swayed by external expectations, and when you can use that magic 2-letter word, no, and it works for you, that's the best place to be. And that's where we're all headed, I hope. So when you live in alignment with your true self, and again, that's why I'm talking about meditation. When you live in alignment with your true self, that's where you can, if you're not meditating, if you're not spending time alone, because a few minutes ago I said, how do I get to know my true self? I said, I've got to spend more time alone. And yes, I do meditate, but I've got to get more consistent. I've got to get more intentful. Yes, more intentful around my own meditation, because that's the only way I'm going to hear those small voices. It's the only way I'm going to really know who and what my authentic self is. It's the only way I'm going to know. It's going to come through intuition. It's going to come through still small voices. It's going to come through that solitude. You want the more peace and the resilience and all of that stuff that comes with it. Let's jump over to our next segment, and this is the last one. These are applications, okay? How do we get there? Some of the same, some new. So journaling. Of course, we've talked about journaling here on the podcast before. Reflect after you're spending your quiet time, even before you spend your quiet time. I find it best to do it early in the morning and then late at night. Do your journaling, set your goals, get yourself ready for the next day. Set your intentions for the day that you're going into. Write down what you've already accomplished in the present tense. We've talked about all this stuff. You know how to set your goals. Be intentional. But when you go into your mindfulness and into your meditation, just ask the question, okay? Because knocking the door should be open, asking you shall receive, sort of deal. Who you asking the question to? Yourself. Your true self, your higher self. Show me. I'm very interested in knowing who and what my authentic self is. Lead me in that direction. Let today be full of action and speech that mirrors my authentic self. As you go through your meditation, repeat that question. Today, I am my highest self, my authentic self. There's a practice that I have because if you don't know, we'll do a podcast on it. But water is very, very powerful. Of course, it is depicted throughout most sacred scripture, particularly the Bible, and it is an inflection and a identifier of spirit. But water is ancient and it carries a lot of molecules. I talk to my water before I drink it. I say into the water that it's going into my body, that you have healing power, that you are full of abundance, all the good things that I want my body to be. I say it into my water. As you go into your shower every day, this is a practice that I have, talking about being your authentic self. I go in intentionally. And I use the time in the water because as you are extending your meditation, remember in the morning we get up, we get into our morning practice, and I hope after or part of your morning practice, of course, cleaning your body. And so as you're exiting your meditation, something that I do is as I get into the shower, I always do it intentionally. And I say, hey, as the water and the soap is running off of me, I know that I am cleaning off any negativity, any negative thoughts, any negative emotion. That's what I feel as I am being rinsed off of the water. But as the water runs clearly with no soap on my body, and I'm about to exit and get out, I always say to myself, I exit as if it's a time portal. I exit this shower knowing that I am now in my most abundant timeline. I exit this shower now knowing that I am my highest self, my truest self. I'm vibrating as high as I can as I leave this portal. And I want that water to resonate with what's taking place in the universe and, of course, to increase my frequency. And since I started doing it, it's been probably 6 months or more, I can tell a difference. I can tell a difference. And journaling is where you want to write that sort of thing down. You want to identify where these practices work and reinforce the fact that they do work, because that's what's going to reinforce your practice. Seeing proof reinforces your practice. Your practice, you'll see more proof, and it reinforces each other. Write it down and just remember. So the last thing is the authenticity check-ins. Check in with yourself. Make a habit of asking yourself, excuse me, are my actions, decisions, speeches, and things like that, are they mirroring my authentic self? How do you know? Well, how do you feel? How do you feel? Do you feel good about the things that you're doing? Do you feel good about whatever it is that you're trying to do? How do you feel? The way that you feel is the most important thing. So again, while love is a powerful force, authenticity is the key to a truly fulfilled life. So embrace your true self, create a solid foundation for all of the emotions, including love, joy, peace. All of that can naturally flow together. But try your best to be your best and your most authentic self. So take a moment today, even as you exit this podcast, and thank you for listening all the way through. Take a moment today and think about who you are right now, even if you just have to write it down in your journal. Who am I being right now? And then make a second column and saying, does this match who I believe to be my authentic self? How aligned do you believe yourself to be with your authentic true self? And if you don't think you're in alignment, then take those steps of journaling, meditation, and mindfulness check-ins, the authenticity check-ins, and to see your progress. Spend some time with yourself. That's really the only way that you're going to know if you're being your authentic self. Guys, I really appreciate you listening today. Thanks. I hope you got a lot out of this. There's more to come. Come back, check us out soon. Make sure you check the show notes. This is a free download. Free download. So if you're listening to us, it doesn't matter on podcasts or on YouTube, it doesn't matter. Check the links and get your free download and come, subscribe. Hey, all you guys that are over listening to podcasts, because we got a ton of you guys over just listening to podcasts. We need your help over on YouTube. If you'll just go over to YouTube, check out 1 or 2 videos, because I think we've only done like 2 or 3 video portions of our podcast. The other audios are there. But I need you guys to start subscribing to that portion of the show. And the reason is we want to get our numbers up on YouTube for obvious reasons. It helps the podcast. And each week, it helps us be shown. Obviously, the algorithm picks us up more. You know, if you like and comment, subscribe, it'll pick us up and show us more. Just like it did on the podcast. You guys know when we first started, you know, we didn't do a whole lot of marketing. You guys did all the work. You were sharing. You were, sending out to family members, loved ones, and associates, and we appreciate it. We need the same thing to happen on YouTube. If you'll subscribe for us, we'd appreciate it. And again, this is a free one. Come back and check us out soon. And have a good week. Have a good month. And I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.